giving us an insight into Amazon FBA. Now I would like to invite Ayesha, Tariq, Sathi for a panel discussion. The topic is the digital advertising mix of the future and its impact on e-commerce. Ayesha is the founder at Sathi Learning and Company.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Firstly, thank you everyone for being here, especially in this weather and being here with us right now. So one by one, I would like to call our distinguished panelists to come on stage with us so that we can have a productive discussion on the topic. So can I request all our panelists to come up on stage? So, before we start our panel discussion on the digital advertising mix of the future and its impact on e-commerce, I would like to distinguish panelists to give their introductions. So, can we start with Mr. Bilal Mumtaz?
Sure. So my name is Bilal Mumtaz. I'm a health tech entrepreneur. The brand that I run is called Ilaj, which is actually a health tech platform that offers teleconsultations and online pharmacy delivery. And I guess my role in this, even though Ilaj itself isn't a health tech company, is that I have provided PR and branding consultancy to a lot of startups, and I've even mentored a lot of startups in the community over the past 8 years. So that's essentially what I'm involved.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Sheikh Aziz. I'm the CEO at Hive Metrics. Hive Metrics is an e-commerce marketing company specializing in developing e-commerce and performance marketing. We have been serving this industry for 3 years, and before that, I have been working as a consultant for multiple e-commerce brands, which are like Limelight, Barok, etc. Thank you.
My name is Mohammed Khanani. We run an e-commerce company, so we basically build brands and run them. So currently in Pakistan, we're operating 11 brands. Other than that, we also have brands operating in Turkey, UK, and UAE. So some of our popular brands in Pakistan are Fifth Avenue Clothing, Bites.pk, Memnu, and Lemon Tart are some of the more popular ones in Pakistan.
Thank you very much. Since our topic is regarding digital advertising, I think it's very important to understand कि digital advertising में क्या-क्या चीज़ें शामिल होती हैं, what is included within the scope of digital advertising and what is not. So I would request some input from our panelists.
So digital advertising refers to what traditional marketers have called TTL, through the line, because in traditional business setting, right, what you're taught about marketing or advertising specifically is that there lies above the line advertising, which includes, your out of house billboards. Nowadays, that even gets translated into, say, digital streamers and print marketing and radio. And then there's below the line marketing, which doesn't use the traditional mediums that, say, are publicly ideal for, say, brand awareness. So that's why we've come up with a unique term called through the line that uses digital mediums that, it's debatable whether they reach a larger audience than the ATL mediums, but at least there's traceability, there's analytics involved, and there's even scalability, knowing that if you put X dollars today in a marketing activity, you can get so-and-so RNI, and at least the traceability behind it all, makes it a medium that's going to be talked about and that's going to see more investment in the future.
So can you repeat the question again? I was busy.
So the question was that what's the scope of the term digital advertising? इसमें क्या-क्या चीज़ें शामिल हैं? Traditional तो हमें पता है, print media हो गया, billboards हो गए. That's our understanding of traditional advertising.
So first thing about digital advertising is that it is the modern way of sending you message to your audience. और अगर हम इसको कंपेयर करें अपनी कन्वेंशनल मार्केटिंग के साथ, जो कि बिलबोर्ड और बाकी चीज़ें रह गई हैं, इट इज़ मोर एक्यूरेट एंड आई बिलीव कि इसने हमारी जो कम्युनिकेशन विद द डायरेक्ट कंज्यूमर वो आसान बना दी है. So for me, digital marketing terminology is future.
For me, I feel the biggest difference between traditional and digital is because people say billboards, newspapers, but that's also going digital. So for me, the difference is that digital marketing is interactive. That's the main thing, right? In traditional, there wasn't that interactivity. I feel anything that is, because whether it's a newspaper with a QR code, that does essentially come into digital. Whether it's a new signboards you see with a screen on it. So I think anything that you can interact with is digital for me.
I think that's a great way of describing it, that the moment you put a screen on it, it takes the nature of digital. One upcoming trend is regarding influencer marketing and live video streaming, or we see this happening with a lot of e-commerce stores right now, that they're making use of influencer marketing and live streaming. So what do you think the future of live streaming looks like in the next 10 years or 20 years or so?
So, I don't know how interactive the audience will be, but raise your hands if you've heard of an app called Clubhouse. That's quite impressive. So, when you talked about basically, Twitter live streaming, yes, there was a predecessor product called Periscope, but now what we're seeing is product like Clubhouse being integrated in different social media channels. So, the reason Clubhouse came about was so that different people could actually create a room online and talk about a certain topic. And it was done, on a live basis. You could just join in, you could, contribute to a conversation, you could just discuss something, and, it was all done sort of digitally. So there was that traceability that, yeah, I joined a room or I'm part of something. And then a lot of times, these rooms ended up becoming, say, breeding grounds for great ideas like organizing conferences or even starting startups.
Gives you a sense of community, basically, that you're part of a bigger whole, you belong somewhere, and I think that's where crowdsourcing of ideas also happens.
Of course. So my forte in, say, digital advertising actually comes under digital PR. One might call it influencer marketing, but having engaged with a lot of blogs in the past, having done, media buying and then selling, say, ad space in the form of written content to a client shows that, right, there was a time when tech blogs were just niche products appealing to either the telecom sector or nascent startups or big software companies. Now even a big brand realizes, or even a new brand realizes, that it cannot survive without having an online component to it, be it an e-commerce website or being a social media presence. And that's why these tech blogs, or what I like to call influencers in my own lingo, have actually consolidated themselves as platforms through which I think, since we are in a startup-based conference, that there is a need to increase analytics and following and potentially grow business of these blogs to cover stories and to give a lot of brands content they need that can actually fulfill their ROI.
So for me, influencer marketing has been there in the world for a very long time, since the digital came into existence. Because हम अगर पिछली अपने ads वगैरह भी देख लें, तो उसमें भी जुनैद जमशेद और शाहरुख खान वगैरह का इस्तेमाल किया जाता था और आज भी किया जाता है. मगर उनकी जगह पे माइक्रो इन्फ्लुएंसर्स आ गए, जिन्होंने हमारी रीच और रीच को ईजी कर दिया, एक्सेसिबल कर दिया. सिंस देयर आर ऑल्सो पीपल जिसके ऊपर लोग ट्रस्ट करते हैं और उनके ट्रस्ट से ब्रांड्स कैश कर रहे होते हैं. तो इसी वजह से इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग प्लेज अ वेरी वाइटल रोल इन डिजिटल मार्केटिंग, एंड आई बिलीव एवरीवन शुड डू इट.
Do you make use of it in your own business in any way?
Yes, we do.
Can you share a few examples for the audience so that it's more relatable?
Yes, I can. Since we are a service provider, we work with a lot of fashion retail brands. So whenever we take a brand on board, तो हम जब भी उनका पोर्टफोलियो स्टडी कर रहे होते हैं कि किस तरह का प्रोडक्ट वो बना रहे हैं, तो उसमें हम सबसे पहली चीज़ जो मार्केटिंग मटेरियल यूज़ कंसिडर कर रहे होते हैं, वो इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग यूज़ कर रहे होते हैं. और 10 out of 9 times इट वर्क्स आउट लॉट. अब इसमें होता ये है कि हमारी जो एकदम से रीच होती है, दैट ग्रोज रियली फास्ट, क्योंकि जब हम पेड मार्केटिंग की साइड पे भी जाते हैं तो वो उस तरह की ऑडियंसेस फिल्टर करके हमें प्रोवाइड नहीं करता. मगर जब हम इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग के साथ जाते हैं और उनकी ऑडियंस के साथ इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, तो हमें उसको रीटारगेट करने में हेल्प हो जाती है. तो जो प्रिसाइज ऑडियंस ढूंढना वाला प्रोसेस है वो ईजी हो जाता है. तो और हुआ ये कि जब उनके साथ हमने काम शुरू किया और उनका जब कन्वर्जन की बात आई तो हमारी सेल्स आउटस्टैंडिंगली हाई थी. वी रीच अबाउट 10 million ऑफ सेल्स इन जस्ट 5 days. और उसके बाद फिर ब्रांड पे भी ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आ जाती है कि वो कस्टमर एक्सपीरियंस बेहतर करे, क्योंकि उसने कस्टमर को रिटेन रखना होता है. और अगर कस्टमर रिटेन नहीं होगा तो जितनी मर्जी भी डू पेड मार्केटिंग, इट विल नॉट हेल्प अस इन एनी वे, बिकॉज द पोजिशनिंग ऑफ द ब्रांड इज ऑलरेडी ruined. So this is our experience.
So, do you see the trend of influencer marketing picking up in the future or changing its form in any way or staying the same? What's your prediction?
For me, the influencer marketing is always going to grow. क्योंकि हम पहले सिर्फ इंस्टाग्राम को देखते थे एज एन इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग, फिर ब्लॉग्स वगैरह भी आना शुरू हो गई, जैसे हमने अभी बात की कि पहले टेक ब्लॉग्स वर वेरी नीश, बट राइट नाउ इट इज़ अ नीड ऑफ एवरी टेक्नोलॉजी बेस्ड कंपनी और इवन पीपल हु आर जस्ट समहाउ रिलेटेड टू टेक्नोलॉजी. तो इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग इज ऑलरेडी ग्रोइंग, इट्स ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड. जो लोग अभी नहीं कर रहे उनको उसको कंसिडर करना चाहिए. और ये मीडियम इन टर्म्स ऑफ वीडियोस जो आप अभी बात कर रही थी उसमें भी इंक्रीज़ करेगा, क्योंकि लोगों को विजुअल जो वीडियो कंटेंट है वो ज़्यादा इंटरेक्टिव लगता है इंस्टेड ऑफ इमेजरी. तो वो ज़्यादा वीडियो की साइड पर आ जाएगा, जैसे हम अभी देखते हैं टिकटॉक. अब आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ द पीपल सिटिंग इन दिस मार्की आर यू फेमिलियर ऑफ टिकटॉक. अब टिकटॉक अपनी सिर्फ एक 10 सेकंड की इंटरेक्टिव वीडियो सेक्शन की वजह से इतना पॉपुलर हो गया और उसने बहुत सारे ब्रांड्स को अपनी सेल्स और पोजीशनिंग में भी हेल्प किए. तो इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केटिंग का जो बेहतर मीडियम जो चेंज होने वाला है वो वीडियो कंटेंट में चेंज होने वाला है इंस्टेड ऑफ इमेजरी. थैंक यू.
Great, thank you. Would you like to share some thoughts
Yeah.
since you're leading
So-
retail?
So actually, most people I speak to are very pro influencer marketing, and abroad I'll agree with it. But in Pakistan, I'm of the opinion that it's probably the biggest waste of money you can do. You know, a lot of people can argue, but when you work in a market like UK, your CPMs can go up to $12, $13. In Pakistan, you can be doing them at 30 to 50 cents. So as it is, digital marketing is so cheap that I don't feel. Second, so I'll just give you a good example. You go anywhere in the world, take England for example, right? The new prince was born. He wore a t-shirt, like his first t-shirt. The brand was pre or back ordered for 4 or 5 years. They said, Pakistan में क्या है? Sana Sabina किसी ने पहन लिया. Your prime minister wears it. Yeah, they'll get 100 orders. They'll get 200. And I think the best example is when you go abroad, you look at Kylie Cosmetics. You can look at Huda Beauty. You can look at Fenty. You see even the Honest Company. You see that these influencers went and started their brands, and you know they really killed it. In Pakistan, yeah, you have Junaid Jamshed, which is one, but that was also Junaid Jamshed had the aspect, but a large part of it, like I know them, is their textile background, the partner he took on. So for me in Pakistan, and the biggest problem is the influencers don't work on an exclusive basis. For example, he said that a brand has a launch. The issue is जब आपकी launch season आती है एंड ऑफ मार्च में, आप कोई भी इन्फ्लुएंसर खोल लो, आप एक ब्रांड को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हो. आपका ट्रस्ट क्या है जब आपने हर दिन हर लॉन पहनी ली है. आज आप बोल रहे हो कि मैं गुलामत जा रही हूँ, उसके कपड़े इतने अच्छे हैं, अगले दिन आप जाके बोल रहे हो अलकरम के अच्छे हैं, अगले दिन बोल रहे हो खाटी के अच्छे हैं. तो आपकी क्रेडिबिलिटी, कस्टमर, व्हाई शुड द कस्टमर ट्रस्ट यू? विच अब यू टॉक अबाउट क्रिकेटर्स, यू टॉक अबाउट व्हेन दे साइन ऑन, या दे टेक अ लॉट मोर मनी, बट दे साइन ऑन इन एक्सक्लूसिविटी ना. अब सोचो वो वसीम अकरम एरियल की ऐड करता था. If on one channel he's saying Ariel की धुलाई बेहतर है, next he's saying Surf की धुलाई बेहतर है, so who's going to trust him? There needs to be somewhere where the influencers limit who they work with, right? So I'm very against it in Pakistan.
I think that's a very apt way of putting this. It's true because the end person, the consumer who's on the receiving end is like super confused that if they're looking for a certain characteristic in the product, so who do they really like go for and trust? So exclusivity from this we identify is one element which is like missing in the local market. Maybe if influencers can become more exclusive to certain brands, I think this would really help to pick up the trend and like build trust more as well.
But at the same time, I have something to add in. When we talk about the influencers from international market, they have got international outreach. So if you talk about Pakistani influencers, उनकी मेजरली ऑडियंसेस और जो रीच होती है वो पाकिस्तान की होती है. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप लेट्स टेक हमारे इंटरनेशनल स्टार्स कुछ ही हैं, हम अगर कोई चीज़ शायद अफरीदी को बनाते तो एवरीवन इज़ गोइंग टू सी अराउंड द ग्लोब. और अगर वही चीज़ हम लोग लेट्स से किसी और क्रिकेटर को इमाद वसीम को बना देते हैं, तो वो सिर्फ एक पाकिस्तानी ऑडियंस देखेगी. तो रीच का भी मेजर फ़र्क है आई बिलीव. तो आपको जो अपनी सिलेक्शन ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंसर है वो बड़ी देख के करनी चाहिए अपनी ब्रांड की पर्सनालिटी के मुताबिक और आप किस तरह की ऑडियंस को रीच करना चाह रहे हैं.
Just, I want to add something to that. You mentioned Shahid Afridi. Again, I'm just going to argue with you on this. Shahid Afridi has his own brand, Hope Not Out. It's a disaster. कोई कुछ नहीं खरीदता. अगर उसके इतने इन्फ्लुएंस होते तो उसके खुद कपड़े बेसिक टी शर्ट ही बिक जाता ना. अब आप अमेरिका में चले जाओ, माइकल जॉर्डन है, जॉर्डन
क्वालिटी का इशू है.
But regardless, right?
वही वाली बात जो भी मैं कही कि जब if you are doing influencer marketer, you are going to get the customer one time. If your quality is not fine, the customer is not fool enough to get paid market है, they are not going to buy that product again.
Yeah, that's.
So I think there are like two diverse perspectives. I think some brands are more of the opinion that, you know, just let's use this channel of influencer marketing and get it marketed regardless of whether the influencer is exclusive to the brand or not. They don't care. But I'm sure that there are some brands, just like he mentioned, who care about this factor. They want कि जो भी influencer है वो उन्हीं के brand को represent करे and they don't want the person to, you know, be representing other brands. And I think it's a brand choice, or it's an entrepreneurial or the founders or the CEO's choice which comes over here. Moving on to the next question. So one thing that is been picking up, especially when it comes to e-commerce, is the use of Google Analytics, SEO, and, you know, using Google AdWords to actually drive sales revenue. So in your experience, since you're leading e-commerce setups, so you have exposure, how effective this has been, and what are the best practices that you can share with our audience today?
So as far as analytics go, they are, I think, the most important thing, because आजकल की, where again you're competing with so many people, as I earlier said, CPM costs are everything, right? So every dollar you spend, if it's shown to the wrong person, it's, and अब फायदा ये हो गया, you can integrate Google Analytics, Facebook Analytics. So I think Google Analytics on its own is not there, but so like one of the biggest benefits we have when we deploy a new brand is that, you know, we can just use the data set from old brands, because again Facebook का data set है, but ever since the Apple Pixel has come into play, so it's not very accurate. So I think it is critical to have data, which is why also, like, it's, again, there's no way you can succeed without having. As far as SEO goes, personally, we haven't invested too much in SEO, so I can't say much on that.
From here, I would want to add, bro, you need to start doing SEO because it's really effective. It will not give you results in a couple of months, but it will show you drastic results in terms of reach in 6 to 8 months, provided what type of keywords you are looking at. For us, analytics play a very vital role because we, at our firm, we provide 360 services when it comes to performance side. So in terms of ranking a website from the 40th or 50th page to the first page, we really focus on analytics because it helps us work on the right words to rank a website on the first page. Because since Pakistan is already growing when it comes to digital marketing, और डिजिटल साइट्स अभी भी बहुत अवेयर्ड नहीं है, तो लोगों को एड्स और एसईओ का बेहतर तरीके से डिफरेंशिएशन नहीं है. एसईओ लुक्स एक्सपेंसिव ऑन द फर्स्ट हैंड, मगर इवेंचुअली जब आप दोनों का कंपैरिजन करते हैं इन अ लॉन्ग रन ऑफ 8 months और 9 months और 1 year, तो आपको फील हो, आपको रिजल्ट्स उसके बड़े इफेक्टिव मिलेंगे कि गूगल एड्स के ऊपर जो आपकी कॉस्ट जा रही है और जो एसईओ पे कॉस्ट जा रही है वो ड्रास्टिकली डिफरेंस है दोनों के अंदर. इफ़ यू आर स्पेंडिंग एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ 100,000 रुपीज़ ऑन एसईओ इन 1 year, तो आप गूगल एड्स के ऊपर $200, $300, $400 बच चुके होंगे. तो एसईओ प्लेज अ वेरी वाइटल रोल एंड गूगल एनालिटिक्स आल्सो प्रोवाइड अ वेरी वाइटल रोल फॉर अस.
So actually having completed a digital guru black belt in Google products, I can speak quite extensively on SEO and the use of analytics, coupled with the fact that I've also been running an e-commerce site for the last 8 years. So one of the advantages we had with running Sehat, which is a precursor to Ilaj, which was the country's first ever online pharmacy, was that we ranked very highly for a lot of keywords. In fact, we ranked for close to 10 to 12,000. And based on our organic search traffic, we got 15,000 hits a day without doing any marketing whatsoever. Which, you know, if you try doing that in this day and age, it's pretty much impossible in any industry you want to go into. What I will say about analytics is, yes, when you do integrate it with Google Search Console, or you know what was known as Webmaster Tools, then you get a clear idea of what people are searching for, how you rank for it, and you know what type of keyword it is, and then you ascertain whether it's short tail or long tail. I mean, even in SEO itself, there's a lot of other factors that come into play. There's search engine marketing, there's backlinking, there's affiliate marketing, and coming now to basically search in particular, right? When it comes to paid search, yes, the overall effects of SEO do take around at least 3 months for a company or an e-commerce site to realize. And then what it's saying is that you should at least experiment for at least 2 weeks on paid search campaigns. There's a lot of good tools out there. Google Trends lets you know how, you know, trending a particular keyword is. I mean, just जब Baba cars launch हुई थी पाकिस्तान में, तो वो Honda Toyota को भी outrank कर रहे थे. I was doing some, you know, research for an automotive client one time. And even, you know, with Google Market Finder, it hasn't really come in Pakistan yet, but you actually get to know the monetary value of a particular market, of a particular industry, based on online searches. And one last thing I'd like to share, because I have sort of dragged on, is that Google comes out with a year in search report. So in 2021, you know, we found a lot of interesting things, you know, that happened after the pandemic. There was around, you know, triple-digit growth in search terms for mental healthness, in search terms for certain items like sanitizers. People were looking up more about how to create a side business, how to make more money. And even what I will say is that when you look at certain, you know, archetypes, because he was talking about the different customer patterns in buying items, 3 types of archetypes actually make up more than 75% of online purchases. That is the brand loyalist, that is the autopilot. The autopilot is just like the impulse buyer. And the third is the heavy researcher. And that's why I think, you know, especially in Pakistan, branding is a very important thing. The pharma market over here is very unique in that sense. It doesn't run on generics, but it runs on pharma brands. And then, you know, it's also very interesting to know that for every 10 physical shoppers, there are 30 shoppers out there who will not visit a physical store until they actually go buy the item. So there's a lot of time being spent online.
Great to hear about your in-depth experience in this area and the research that you've done and the experiences that you've had. So with that, I would like to wind up this panel discussion. Thank you everyone for being with us here today and for listening to us, and you know, we love to like share our ideas with you. So thank you very much of the Swinglish panelists for sharing your ideas. And can you please have a round of applause so that we know that there's some people sitting here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.